Hi everyone, this is Stan and this is my free speech channel. Today let's talk about some recent changes in Asian politics. Firstly, the WHO during its visit to China said it's extremely unlikely that the virus actually came from the Chinese laboratory, which is ridiculous because China didn't allow WHO experts to visit China during the start of the outbreak. China actually concealed the whole pandemic, especially during the first 6 weeks when WHO said that there is nothing to be worried about. We have to trust China, even though the Taiwanese doctors have informed the WHO that there is a high risk of human-to-human transmission of the virus. Oh, we have a guest here. Hey there. And during the first visit of WHO to Wuhan, of course they didn't find anything because they've been shown only what Chinese Communist Party wanted them to see. And right now, after a whole year when this pandemic started, after a whole year when nobody at WHO listened to the Taiwanese professionals, after a whole year, China allowed an independent WHO investigation to come and visit and check the Wuhan laboratory, which was actually researching viruses. It was Wuhan Laboratory of Virology. And right now, the whole year passed. What could have been concealed was concealed. What could have been hidden was hidden. They allowed the WHO investigators to come. Of course they didn't find anything there. And there is another thing. It was probably just another luxurious trip of those WHO high-ranking officials to China. With 5-star hotels, luxury restaurants, some sightseeing. They went to a museum that showed how strong China is at fighting the virus. It's not an investigation. And do you know how long did they spend in that laboratory? 3 hours. 3 hours. What could you find in this Institute of Virology in 3 hours? And right now, Communist China with their puppets from the WHO, including Mr. Tedros, who is a member of far-left radical party from Ethiopia, they are trying to switch everyone's attention to Southeast Asia. You know, before there was speculation spread by Zhao, Lijian and some other wolf warriors of Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs that Americans who brought the virus to China, American soldiers who participated in the military games, or then it was Italy. The virus started in Italy. Right now, it's Southeast Asia. And there is a theory that the virus came with some frozen fish from Southeast Asia. So they don't like when the virus is called as Wuhan virus or CCP virus or whatever. I prefer calling it the CCP virus because it all happened because of the actions of the CCP, how they concealed it, even knowing that there is an epidemic risk. And right now, they're gonna say that that's South Asian virus or whatever, and it came with the frozen fish, which in my opinion is just an attempt to switch the blame from the Chinese Communist Party to any other country who is not as influential as China. And this WHO mission to China was not as smooth as it was supposed to be. Some of the WHO specialists had problems with their visas, because, you know, China is a pretty restrictive country. They said that you cannot get your visa, you have some document problems, therefore delaying it all up until the last moment. So they've been probably continuing to conceal some evidence. Some of you might remember that during the virus outbreak, because it started in Huanan Seafood Market, which is very close to Wuhan Institute of Virology, when it all started at the Huanan Seafood Market, how they covered it all up, called the officials, called some special forces, and just started cleaning, destroying all the evidence. And only after that they allowed the specialists to come. Some people with the virus found just disappearing, heading nowhere. It was all pretty shady. And when China was publishing its official numbers of deaths, they said that only 4,000 people died. And then one of the CCP scholars who is actually advocating for the military invasion of Taiwan, said that China had 0 deaths because 4,000 people died means as nobody died because China has such a huge population. Just think how inhumane this government is and how inhumane their supporters are, how they don't value human life at all. And you want to do business with those people? They are not reliable partners who are actually following their contracts and obligations. If they don't like what's said in contract, they will say that that's just a historic document, or that it's racist and it's biased against China, and therefore they're not gonna file a joint declaration regarding Hong Kong. 50 years without changes. Or 2020 minus 1997 equals 50 according to CCP's map. Or look at the 17-point agreement with Tibet, which actually led to the full annihilation of Tibet. Destroying of Tibetan culture and full colonization. Talking about colonization, the new wave of colonization, which is going on in Africa right now by Chinese government, how they're building the infrastructure only for the Chinese people without letting Africans use any of it, how they're exploiting the people there, how they're taking out all the resources that are in Africa. In my opinion, they at least should have some respect to the people there, to the countries there, to their culture, to their traditions, and to the history of those countries. Because even during those large infrastructure projects, when the Chinese people are eating at one table, black people are not allowed there. It has been going on, for example, in Kenya and Tanzania for a while. They live separately, there is no cultural engagement, no cross-cultural communication, and they think that they own Africa. And there is a difference between the European colonization, which was terrible, and Chinese colonization right now is technology. With modern day technology, they're doing it on a faster pace. There's also a pollution question, because the conditions in some African countries are becoming hardly livable. And the problem is that they communicate with the governments directly, not with the people. They go directly to the government, they train their police, they provide them with the best security systems so that if the people rebel against them, they have an opportunity and they have some tools to stop the rebellion. And yeah, China, the CCP, they used to have that arrogant attitude towards the countries that are not as economically developed as China right now, especially African countries. And they used to look down at African people, and they do it up until now. Just look at their New Year Gala performances, when there was a black-faced woman who said in Chinese how she loves China and thanks for bringing civilization to her African village, and how they made some racist advertisements like putting a black guy into a washing machine, and after the wash cycle was over, a Chinese guy came out. That's just unacceptable. And how they had some museum exhibitions where the photographs of African people were put close to the photographs of wild animals, and I think it was called Wild Africa. I mean, like, there was lion and a black person, monkey and a black person, giraffe and a black person, just comparing the people to animals. And they've been told about it multiple times. And during the CCP virus outbreak, they haven't been allowing African people to come to McDonald's, even to an American company's restaurant. They've been kicking out Africans in Guangzhou from their houses. Just imagine, you paid your rent, you're just living there, you're working there, you're staying there legally, you've been kicked out. Just leave, don't stay here. Isn't this racism? And what is racism? And how the law enforcement system has been very unfair to African people, like constant checkups, checking if you stay in your house, coming late at night, just suspecting that every African is a criminal. And right now, if we talk about one of the African countries, Nigeria, there are more than 6,000 Nigerian people in Chinese prison system. And some of them, there were no charges put against them. No charges. They have been just locked there. And in China, there is a huge problem of organ harvesting. It started with Xinjiang, then with Tibet, and after that it was against Falun Gong practitioners, right now against all the dissidents. And there have been some speculations that they also harvest organs of African people. Just imagine how terrible is that. And the Chinese authorities have been told about it. Have been told that you should change your attitudes towards African people. And did they listen? After the New Year Gala performance with a black-faced woman, like many Africans were not happy with what they saw. Right now, one day ago, when there was Chinese New Year Gala performance, they did it all again. They doubled down on another blackface performance. Not only one person wearing blackface, it's many people wearing blackface. And the performance is called African Dance. Let's take a look. And they've been even using children. Just wow. Such a respectful society led by communists. And it's not because they're just ignorant. I think they did it on purpose. Because they've been told about it. And they said, no, we have our own vision. What is racist and what is not racist. I mean, when you say something bad about the CCP, then you're racist. Then you're China biased. Even though that you constantly say, I'm against the CCP, not the people. The people are just hostages. But no, right now, Xi Jinping, the chairman of China, not president, chairman, he said that China does not agree to separate the Chinese people from the Communist Party. So right now, this bunch of thugs, this biggest crime gang with 90-something million people, is speaking on behalf of all the Chinese people. And here's one thing I wanted to highlight once again. On my main channel, I've been talking about it. We should always separate the government from the people. And to the black people watching this channel, to the black people watching this video, this behavior, it doesn't mean that the Chinese people are biased against the black people. There are some who are, but it's not the majority. And probably there is some lack of education. The biggest problem here lies within the CCP, which is the Chinese government. a bunch of ignorant thugs, and not the people. Most of the Chinese people are very kind, very polite, and they're actually freedom-loving people. On my main channel, I have frequent call-ins. I have call-in shows 2 or 3 times a week. And there are many people calling right from China. Even they have some risk because they have been surveilled constantly. I'm just telling them not to turn on their cameras, so I can only hear their voices and not see their faces. But per what I've heard, many people feel very ashamed of the government that's holding them hostage, and they don't want to have anything in common. But with the technology, with all the means and all the resources that the Chinese Communist Party has, they just cannot do anything. So here, I think we should support the Chinese freedom-loving people and always separate them from the government, always separate them from this bunch of thugs. Because the CCP, the People's Republic of China, or the CCP's Republic of China, the main goal of existence of this country, it's not the well-being of the people, it's not freedom, it's not the development of Chinese culture, or this country exists only to let the CCP exist. And the whole society works to keep the CCP in power. All of the resources are being swallowed by the CCP. That's the biggest problem of China. And here is another topic I wanted to discuss with you, is, as you know, I'm a libertarian. I like works of Milton Friedman, Thomas Sowell. I think that economically, China deserves more freedom. And Chinese society, traditional Chinese society, is actually very pro-libertarian. There is even a saying in Mandarin, 天高皇帝远. That means the sky is high above and the emperor is far away. Meaning the people there don't actually want to have any central authorities about them. Most of the Chinese families can function on themselves perfectly. And just take a look at the Chinese society right now. Yes, it's communist, yes, it's socialist, but, you know, it's just government taking all of the resources from the people and not actually letting people develop. They don't have any working social security. They don't have any normal medical insurance. They don't have any guarantees. They don't have their basic rights protected by the government, including the freedom of press, including the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech. They don't have it all. And they don't have any welfare, actually. Most of the people are not eligible for any kind of retirement there. So some of the people say that it's a far-right society, actually, which I also don't agree with. It is just a society of subjugation. When you belong to the government, you're a tool of the government. It is communist to a certain extent, because the government owns you, but at the same time, without any benefits of the communism, like free healthcare, some retirement funding, and so on. And Chinese people are hardworking. They go into details deeply. They're also freedom-loving. Yes, they are freedom-loving. They have a very developed religious culture. They have their traditional family values. Just take the CCP out of the equation and think how this society would thrive without a central oppressive totalitarian government. They know how to save money, they know how to invest, they know how to take care of themselves, they know how to take care of their health. They're very independent people, and they deserve freedom. But the history has really not been fair towards the Chinese people, which is a shame. Just take a look, what results did the Chinese Americans achieve after leaving the totalitarian China? I know that the Chinese Communist Party wants everyone to have an illusion that the Chinese people, they're not prepared for freedom. It's better for them to live under a totalitarian government, which is a lie. The China is not prepared for the democracy. They need an emperor, which also is a lie. I think that liberty suits China and the Chinese people the most, and they really deserve it. But that's another topic for a different discussion, a longer one, where we can go deeper into Chinese culture and liberty. There is another piece of news I wanted to discuss with you. Joe Biden, the newly elected president of the United States, talked to Xi Jinping, the chairman of China, finally. And there were 2 news releases, one on the White House's website and the second one at Xinhua's website, which is the Chinese official CCP's media. And the contents of these 2 news releases was very different. If you look at the one which was published at White House's website, what does it say here? That Biden expressed his concerns in regards to coercive and unfair economic practices, what's going on in Hong Kong right now, Chinese policies towards Uyghurs, Chinese constant threatening of Taiwan. But if you look at Chinese media's website, it says nothing about it. The only thing that was actually written there in regards to those issues is that China highlighted that Taiwan, Xinjiang, Hong Kong are all Chinese internal politics, and the world should not interfere with China's internal affairs. Firstly, what on earth does Taiwan has to do with China? China didn't rule Taiwan, not for a single day, not for a single second. Communist China didn't rule the country, and even during Ming and Qing dynasties, they never ruled Taiwan as a whole. Never. Just some areas were controlled by the Chinese that time. They didn't rule the country, not for a single day. And Taiwan is a fully independent country with its own territory, with its own people, with its own government, with its own military, financial system, legal system, everything. Which has its diplomatic missions all around the world, but just being constantly bullied by China, therefore not being allowed to join the United Nations. But the membership in the United Nations, it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make you less of a country if you're not a member of the United Nations. And Taiwan is a very developed, independent state, which is being constantly bullied by a totalitarian regime across the Taiwan Strait. What did they actually talk about if those two news releases are so different? Probably Mr. Xi just asked Mr. Biden how Hunter is doing. Is everything alright? How's his business? And when will he come to China next time? And how did Joe Biden answer? I don't know. Probably he just said, oh, come on, man. And right now, Biden just withdrew Trump's rule on schools to disclose their ties with Confucius institutes, which are foreign missions in the United States. They belong to the Chinese Communist Party. They're ruled by the Chinese Communist Party. And they're actually affecting the freedom of thought in academia. And right now, the US K-12 from kindergarten to the 12th grade and universities don't have to disclose any ties they have with Confucius institutes. Any kind of donations they receive from them, any materials coming from China, nothing. But you know how dangerous are those Confucius institutes in the United States. They're just the tools of Chinese propaganda. You're not allowed to talk about Taiwan there. They deny that there is Uyghur genocide going on in China right now. They say things like the Communist Party is great, spread some Marxist ideas. If you learn your Mandarin at the Confucius Institute, visited China probably on a trip, when you actually start working, or if you start working for the US's government, or if you join any kind of US's think tank, where you're supposed to have an independent opinion on China, on Asia, what's going on. People that had some relations with Confucius Institute always look at international politics from China's point of view. And they will always support and protect China. They will close their eyes on genocides, they will close their eyes on human rights atrocities, they will close their eyes on the lack of freedom. They'll close their eyes on unfair economic practices, on intellectual property theft, forceful technology transfer, and so on and so forth. They're going to make the voices of Chinese Communist Party out of those students attending Confucius Institutes. And here, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo did a very right thing when he has been talking that the United States should start developing its own Mandarin learning programs, that the United States should educate their own specialists on Asian region, on China in particular. And therefore, in my opinion, the United States should cooperate more with Taiwan, which is a partner and a country with a similar mindset. As you know, I don't have a favorable opinion on Mr. Joe Biden. I don't think that he is a healer who is going to unite the United States. The divide between different groups of people in the US will probably grow deeper and wider during Biden's presidency. But whatever. Looking at his politics towards China, looking at how he is withdrawing from all the rules, how he's canceling executive orders, he's just an anti-Trump president. Whatever Mr. Trump did, would it be good, would it be bad, would be just cancelled and neglected by the new administration, even if his policies were correct ones, especially his policies towards China. And there is the last thing I wanted to tell you. BBC has been blocked in China. Yes, it probably is related to the revocation of CGTN's license. CGTN is just the CCP's propaganda machine abroad. And right now, as a revenge sanction, they blocked BBC in China, which for me is actually very funny because BBC has always been more to the left. And especially during these days, I have seen that article in Mandarin Chinese. I'm following the Chinese version of BBC on my Facebook. And there was that article being pushed to me during these days, I think 4 times or even 5 times, which in Mandarin says, Marx was right. The greatest thing he has done for you. In Mandarin, in Chinese. And which is very funny. I think that socialism is the biggest evil that ever got invented by the human being on Earth. It's evil, it's unfair, it's just a perfect soil for the dictatorship to grow. I am openly talking about the ideas of liberty, of property rights, of limited government, of minimal government. Probably you can call me a minarchist here. Seriously? Marx? Seriously? BBC? Why are those socialist voices being so loud recently? Especially after Mr. Joe Biden was elected and, you know, his vice president has been spreading some Marxist propaganda before about the differences between equality and equity. But that's another topic. That's just so stupid. And right now, BBC is blocked in China by the probably most Marxist country in the whole world. So yeah, they had it coming, I think. What's interesting, from China's point of view, if you cannot control anything, if something can just get out of control, they don't want to have it there. It's easier for them to cancel. So BBC, recently they have been talking about human rights, about what's going on in Hong Kong, about what's going on in Xinjiang, in Tibet. They have been more vocal about supporting Taiwan. It was English version of BBC. But probably from the Chinese Communist Party's point of view, it was already very dangerous. Yeah, you see, they only want to have one type of voice, and this type of voice should be favorable to Chinese Communist Party. So, as a conclusion, we should all remember, the CCP is not our friend, but the Chinese people are. So always separate the CCP from the Chinese people. Thank you for watching. This is Stan, and I see you in the next one.
天上不会掉馅儿饼，大家撸起袖子加油干！加油干！